My name is Nataliia. I'm a freediver, and I'm here today to share with you my experience about freediving itself. And I hope that my experience will help you to see one of the points of view why to freedive. I'm myself a competitive freediver, and I'll share the story how I got into the competition and what it did to me and to my life. And of course, freediving can be very diverse, and there can be many different things about this activity and sport, in my case, but doesn't necessarily need to be sport per se. That there are millions of reasons to freedive, I'm sure. A 45 minutes presentation won't be enough to cover all of them. So I'll share just my point of view, my personal journey, and I hope that some of you will find it interesting. And if at least one person will leave this room thinking, oh, you know what, like I should try it, I will feel myself fulfilled and I'll consider my job done. So before answering the question, why to freedive from me, I will take up the room for a little while. I want to give you an opportunity to maybe express your opinions. Is anyone here who freedives already? Maybe. Oh, wow, quite a few. Okay, we're still rare species, and I'm feeling excited every time when I meet my people. So what is it for you? Like maybe 1, 2 words. Why do you freedive? What made you to try it? Relaxing. Good one. For you? Relaxation, huh? Feel free. Freedom. Yes, those all are nice reasons to freedive already. And I did meet people across the world who found it the same interesting, the same point of interest. Before diving deeper into this question of why to freedive, let me express the opinion on what the freediving is. And let's see what freediving is. It's still not that popular of a sport, to be sure, 100% for everyone activity. And as I mentioned, it can be very diverse, from competition, which I participated in myself, to something what I would call advanced snorkeling, where you can just play around the reef, watch the marine life, and have just a cool time with your friends and family, to some tools, like to breath hold being a tool for such activities as, for example, underwater hockey and underwater rugby. And yes, those things exist. It's something fun. And breath hold can be a tool also for spearfishers, for underwater cameramen. Sorry. So itself, it can be not only the reason to do it, but it also can be a support for doing something more than that. So here you go. That's already one answer to the question, why to freedive? But I want to address some misconceptions which are circulating nowadays among the community, thanks to some streaming platforms, I want to say, that I want to say what freediving is not. To tell what it is, it's too big of a topic, but I want to specifically focus on what it is not. It is not a death wish sport. Believe me, I've been doing freediving competitively for over 10 years, and not even a single day I thought, oh, you know what, I'm going to take it to the limit that my mom will be worried and my husband will keep the phone close to him. Not really, no. It's always very controlled and feels super safe in the setting, how it's done, and absolutely in no moment you think about death or something like that. Is it just for dramatic purposes if you hear otherwise? I want to say also that it is not for experiencing acute hypoxic state. I heard some scuba divers speaking sometimes about free divers, or like, yeah, you have dead brain cells or something like that. It's absolutely not the case. As long as you're conscious and as long as you're capable of being a human still and breathing and resume breathing, your brain is completely safe and fine. Your body is still, your blood is still transporting enough oxygen to support that function. So Does hypoxic state come into free diving? Yes. Again, if it is a competitive sport where it is a kind of a point to see how far I can go, right, without a death wish still. But as I mentioned already, too, free diving doesn't need to be a sport. It can be fun, just fun practice, just to splash around. And then hypoxic states are not there whatsoever. And as soon as you take your first course, if you haven't done it so yet, if you get to a good instructor, an experienced school, and people who have safe practices, they will teach you that stay outside of hypoxic zone because you need to hold your breath within your comfortable limits, and hypoxic state is rather an exception for some rather than a rule for everyone. Okay, and the last but not least, I want to point out that it is absolutely not a sport for choosing one. And if anything, freediving is absolutely for everyone. I can bet that every one of you, even those who haven't tried freediving yet, you guys can hold your breath up to 2 minutes just from learning how to breathe properly before holding your breath and how to enter the mindset, on which I'm going to elaborate a bit later, because the mindset, from my point of view, is what makes freediving so special, and it is the main reason. If I would need to name one reason to freedive and to say why freedive, I would say it is a mindset, and it is a relaxation, and all those things would come with it. So keeping that in mind, let's address the question of why to freedive. And I want to start a little bit earlier than nowadays freediving, and I want to say that ocean has been there forever, right? And we were interested as human beings, we always were interested in the secrets, mysteries, and goods what the ocean has to offer. But it was not until 1943, I'm curious, there are scuba divers or people who remember what happened in 1943, what kind of a special events, what made all this expo here happen today too. The aqualung was invented. So until 1943, people had no freedom to breathe underwater and roam freely on a level how marine levels would do. But did we sit tight on the shore and waited, well, let's wait until dear Jacques Cousteau will come up with this thing and then we will go down there? No, really, we didn't. And our ancestors watched marine life, animals, dolphins, whales, and were trying to figure out how to collect those goodies with sponges and pearls from the bottom of the sea. So the original and I would say the most natural way for a person to be underwater is actually on a breath hold. It is very traditional. In fact, like for example, on the first image, like I'm not sure how clear you can see that one. On the first image is a pearl diver from Arabian Gulf. And the second image is demonstrating the way of sponge collection from Greek people. There would be a heavy stone attached and the person would be just thrown out of the boat to dive down and collect sponges, and then someone from the boat will pull them up, all in a breath hold. And in those two countries, nowadays, they still celebrate that tradition. In Dubai, for example, where we live this moment, these days, they have a special competition to commemorate the pearl diving, which they consider a traditional sport, the breath hold. Same as in Greece, there is something called Skandalopetra. I hope I pronounce it right. If you'd be curious, you can Google up, and that's a recreation of traditional ways of diving, which were breath hold dives. So my point here is that one of the reasons to free dive is to feel the connection with our ancestors and like how we did it before. And the fact that you're bare naked with the ocean, with just those tools, what Mother Nature gave to you, your lungs, your limbs, your body, it brings us back into the ocean, the cradle which we left long time ago, and living in the concrete jungles, we do experience sometimes sadness of that, right? So back then, the breath hold diving, free diving, was a tool for our ancestors. But is it like what is it good for us? Aqualung is already invented. Why not to strap it on and just jump in the water and roam around, enjoying the breathing underwater, cruising without an urge to breathe? Let me try to answer that question. I asked around community, some friends posted a question in the freediving group and just collected the opinions to see what people say. And some of the most popular answers were like those presented here: to connect with yourself and the nature, because when you free dive, you're entirely connected to your body, into your breathing, and then there is the only focus in that moment is on yourself. And the world outside kind of doesn't matter. Like really, you feel in the bubble of the water, covered in this nice sensations. And it makes you to leave all the worries behind just for the brief moment of a breath hold. Would it be 2 minutes, 1 minute, 3 minutes? Depends how far you can take it or you want to take it. Explore personal limits. For some people, it's a mindset. Like, for example, me, I believe I was born with a competitive mindset. So it was interesting just to explore my limits. Some person from the community told me this: I would go scuba diving underwater because it's so convenient and I can just dive down and swim around, but I would not learn so much about myself as I would learn with freediving. By no means, I don't mean to like convince or compare scuba diving with freediving here today, because, well, I learned scuba diving myself just recently, and I practiced it enough to come to conclusion that it's just yet another tool, and no tool is better than other one. They just all work for different purposes. But for the point what I'm making today, I want to say that freediving would take you deeper to yourself and will make you to learn yourself a bit more. Escaping daily routine, meeting new friends, and ultimately letting your inner child out just for the sake of fun. It's something so different that you can't really imagine doing those things in your daily life here in the cities, right? The different setting, you're splashing in the water, all those, I don't know, starting from interesting places to go, meeting different people with whom you would not meet in the office, for example. All that worth joining freediving and trying it out. This illustration is about the concrete jungles, which I mentioned before, and I hope I don't want it to be too dark, but this is the idea how I feel it, like being disconnected from the nature, right? And what freediving gives you is another tool today. We still need to survive in this setting. We still need to do something about ourselves. And what we need is those moments of peace and joy and sincere pleasure. So it is still a tool, just for the different purpose, right? To keep ourselves sane. Putting bread and butter on the table is not a question anymore, but to maintain quality of life, that's what we're struggling with. And I'm sure freediving can provide for that. Now, as I promised, I'm going to share my story and try to put it in the perspective how that works for me this time. I myself wasn't trapped, let's say, in the big city, because when I started freediving, I was quite young. I was 19, and I didn't really feel that anxiety or depression back then. But what I felt is that I kind of needed a new meaning of life, because since I was 7 years old, I was a swimmer. And my parents never actually meant to make an Olympian out of me. And it was just a physician, like general physician advice. You know what, like girl can use some physical activity, so go and do it. So they threw me into the pool, and according to my mom, I don't recall it myself whatsoever. I came to her one day and said, you know what, I want to take it seriously. So talking about nature and nurture, apparently my nature took over, and I wasn't so happy splashing around in a warm pool, shallow pool with kids. And I said, like, I want a sport, I want a competition. Little did I know what I set myself to. And since some years ago, like more than 20, I've participated in a lot of national competitions for swimming and freediving. I set up 6 or 7 world records in freediving, and I dove to a depth deeper than 100 meters. And that dive of 102 meters I want to share with you today. I want to share the video of it. And I'll try to guide you through this, explaining what is this experience for me. So this is a dive from the year 2019. It was a world championship in Honduras. And it was maybe my second in all the time attempt to break 100-meter mark. But if you can notice, like if it's visual enough, it doesn't look like any other competition, right? Like I'm not sitting there tense, I'm just breathing freely, relaxing, and trying to get into the zone. And as soon as countdown has finished, that's the moment when everything stops. Imagine that you have your window open, and in front of that window you have a huge highway, very noisy. But then in one moment you close that window, and then the moment of silence when you feel that everything is over, nothing is happening around you, and you feel yourself wrapped in that bubble. That's how it feels to start your dive. You go entirely into a new realm where you stay connected to your body, and there is nothing more you have. It's just like you, your ears, your focus, my head in that moment works. I like to compare it with a control station, like control center. There are no emotions. There is no thinking about what I just did or what I'm gonna do next. There is just so present moment that like, okay, that's what I feel at this moment. Do I need to adjust it? Do I need to do something else? And it's just pure analysis without any emotional feedback to it. This is a very special feeling, which I believe can be achieved at any sport, but coming from more traditional sport as swimming, I can tell it's not very popular anywhere else. It's only in freediving at this moment where I meet this approach from the very first days as you will try to freedive. At this moment of the dive, I stopped finning, so I overcame positive buoyancy, and this part of the dive is called free fall. You can see here in the bottom left corner the meters showing the depth. I'm approaching to the bottom, so about from 30 or 40 meters depth to 100, it's pure free fall where you genuinely do nothing. And when it's like, as better you can do nothing, is better you're in this sport. That's something what, again, I like. I kind of call it sport for lazy people sometimes, because like, where else do you have a permission to do nothing at all and be better in it and be a world record holder in it? Once you turn up, the finning starts, and here where you play with your focus. Instead of being focused all around your body in one moment and trying to monitor the changes, you become focused purely on the way up. Now your focus must be sharp, and your mind should be concentrated on one thought to get up there, yeah, and keep calm. Just a constant propulsion without any erratic movements. It is double important because at this depth already, even in free diving, we can experience narcosis. And in this particular dive, the narcosis was quite strong for me. You will try to pay attention to the face when I actually finish the dive. It can kind of be noticed. At this point, around starting 30 meters, safety divers meet us, free divers, and with every 10 meters, one more person joins. So in case if blackout happens, free diver will be pulled up. This is a moment when narcosis is passing by, and I start to get focused again. Whoa, I'm back on the surface. Who is here? What's happening? So that's the face. Thank you. So again, this is a competition setting. This is my tiny perspective from my corner, right? Freediving is way more than this. I'm sharing my experience. It can be very different. But what happened in this moment, I showed my tag, the thing which I pulled at the bottom. So it's kind of proof that I've been there. It's a tradition to those times when we didn't have such deep cameras to actually see if freediver made it or not. this is what happens outside, but what happens inside is my mission control center gets back all together, and now little me, which is separated at that moment from my body, sits somewhere in my brain and starts to look through the windows on the world around me, and the world starts to become more bright, and I feel that my first inhale is like a first inhale which I ever made. And those 3.5 minutes of a dive time was like a time of rebirth. And all this is because of that thing called focus on your inner self. I'm going to get a bit more into this because, as I mentioned earlier, I believe this is the real pearl in freediving. This is what absolutely worth doing this sport. And I believe that it hooked me immediately in comparison with the swimming again, because in swimming competition, it's all about focus outside. You must be better than someone else. You must beat that person. You must make your best performance. The coach standing next to you, and like my coach was real tough woman, post USSR school, I'm from Ukraine, by the way. So there was no such approach as emotional support, feeling. No, you got to prove that you're worth it and you're gonna do it. So it was very refreshing when from the day one, me attending free diving training at first, not even competition. At that day, I didn't even know that it is a free diving and I can compete in it. It just some coach noticed me being very aquatic because of my swimming. And he gave me a fence and said, you know what, like, go try this. Let's see how you do. And I just genuinely enjoyed it because he never told me that this should be different. You do this bad or you do that bad. He said, well, just see how you feel it. And that probably was the first time when I actually asked myself, how do I actually feel? Because until then, I was just cruising through the life of teenager, not paying attention to how I feel, achieving like, okay, finish the school, enter the university, stuff, keep coming up like that. And here I posted that question, how do I feel? And I believe it was the most beautiful moment in the life, and that's how I haven't left freediving for soon to be 16 years, 15 at this moment. Yeah, 15 years. That's how long I'm here. And it is a general approach. Yes, I was lucky with a coach, but every experienced freediving instructor and coach these days will tell their trainees the same thing. Listen to yourself. This encouragement to learn your personal limits and to connect to your body is something very special. As I mentioned, I believe any sport can be done this way, but this one particular has it like engraved from the first steps. It is almost impossible to succeed in a breath hold and to enjoy it if you will set yourself limits or goals outside of your focus, outside of something which you can control. So let me get to this thought. So back in the days when I started to free dive, with that in mind, when I already learned that, okay, there can be a competition, it was 2008. And for the second competition I ever attended, I set already a national record. In year 2009, I went to Denmark to participate in a world championship in the pool. And it was so rewarding because of very young sport. And just having a swimming background got me into all these achievements and gave me results. And I got the recognition. What an amazing thing for a 20-year-old by then young lady. So I got hooked again. I still believe it can be a good reason to start freediving because now 15 years past, it's still quite a young sport. And for some young natural talents, it is still possible to become a national hero, a national record holder with a relatively low effort. 1 or 2 years of training can get you to national record level. And don't get me wrong, I'm not being arrogant. It's really like that because methods develop and the results for what people needed to dive before for 10 years, for example, real example, Umberto Pellizzari had a world record of, I believe, 97 meters. If you know that famous Italian freediver, maybe if not, maybe you will meet his name somewhere searching about freediving. He said it took him a year to progress 1 meter from that point to make another record of 98 meters. Today, again, particularly, I remember year 2015 when I met a girl who just started to freedive. In the year 2016, she was diving 90 meters depth. Is like in 1 year. Yes, of course, it's also a matter of natural talent, but as we move forward, the methods are progressing and we can do that. And it is, as I mentioned, it's very rewarding. Any marathon runners, triathletes, anyone in this room? No? So there is a particular category of people, somewhere around 40 years old, 40, 45 people start to tend to establish themselves in some new achievements. And freediving is way far from being a young sport. For example, another famous freediver who is unfortunately not with us today anymore, Nataliia Zharkova, she is known as the most decorated freediver. She had over, I don't really even remember the real number, something like more than 40 world records, not counting national records and all the wins. She started to freedive when she was 40 years old after giving a birth to her son, Alexei Molchanov, who still carries the flag, and you can meet his name in the community until these days. So here you go. Me as a competitive freediver, I highly recommend you to try it for the competition and for achievement. Because also the way it's done here, it's not like you need to push. It's quite opposite. As long as you will be pushing, and as we say it in my mother language, if you will do it with horns, like pushing through, freediving will stop you. Water does not allow arrogance. Water does not allow pushing through the boundaries sooner than you're ready to that. Okay, this one, white card. What is a white card? White card is a thing which is encouraging to know your limit. So talking about the competition, how freediving became a sport which is so safe as it is safe these days. In the new history, since about 1990s, there was a rule added, which made a huge difference. Freedivers were encouraged not only to dive to a deeper depth, but also come back from that depth. So the competition mindset has changed completely. If you were to finish your dive without an entire control, then the dive doesn't count, and then you would get either yellow or the red card. But what I want to talk today about is a white card itself, because white card means that you listen to yourself, you know your limits, you made a beautiful, nice performance. And achieving the white card at the competition is the biggest you can wish for as a freediver. It's first thing you aim to. And white card is everything for the first competition, the second and the third competition. It's something what encourages you to stay outside of hypoxic state. And seeing a white card is a good thing. Ironically, in this picture, I'm showing yellow cards, so someone was not so good with that. But yeah, that happens. And talking about limits, what the next thing to say is that knowing your limits, it can be done only from within. And to understand when it's a good time to surface or stop your breath hold is something which you can understand by listening, by focusing on the inner part of your body, something what I would call inner body. So imagine you have a surface from outside, right? But you also have a surface inside, like opposite side of your skin. And if you don't mind, I want to make a little experiment with you today for you. Like I will be just guiding you through this. You will experiment yourself if you feel like it. If no, please, you can skip, feel free. About inner focus and about listening to yourself. Take one hand and place it somewhere on the level of your lower ribs, close to the middle. And another hand, if you wish, you can place on your chest. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, you're welcome to do so. If not, it's also completely fine. And for a very brief moment, try to feel the movement of your hands. How do they move and reflect the movement of your body, the way you breathe naturally. You don't need to alternate your breathing at the moment. Feel yourself and this natural flow of air which goes down to your lungs and comes out of your nose. Very brief focus. Try to push all the other thoughts away and ask yourself a question. What thought comes next into my mind? And wait for that thought to come. As soon as that thought comes, you're welcome to open your eyes. Just continue, and I'll continue the presentation. You're welcome to play with this at any given moment. As long as you are staying and waiting for this next thought to come, that's how long you are presented in the now, in the present moment. This is how long your focus was inverted and you could feel yourself. If you notice, there are no actually other questions, right, popping into your mind when you're doing this. It's just you're fully focused and there is this quiet bubble inside you. And again, this is what freediving is teaching us. With the training, as you practice freediving, as you apply this technique more and more, you'll be able to keep that focus and extend it and to make that silence to stay longer with you. And that silence, that is what's called now, presence, absence of inner dialogue. And if you know all, maybe not all, but many of ancient practices as yoga, pranayama, qigong, and others, they used breathing as the getaway to your body into that present moment. This is also called a state of flow. I think myself, I experienced that state first time again in the swimming without actually even knowing about it. But every Saturday, for a few years, maybe 2 years, every Saturday we would have an endurance swim. One Saturday would be 3 kilometers, and the task would be to cover it as fast as possible. And another Saturday, it would be 1 hour swim nonstop to cover as much distance as possible. Not the most exciting thing to do when you're 15 or 16 years old, I gotta tell you. And you absolutely cannot do such thing or a marathon or an Ironman if you are in your natural, normal, everyday mind flow. You will get crazy. They just like try to imagine swimming and paying the bills, going to school and stuff like that, right? So you absolutely must to find escape and find a way to make it happen. And consciously or subconsciously, but the mind shuts down. With the swimming or with the running, triathlon, or other endurance sports, I want to say it is somewhat easy because that's all you have. You have your mind, you have your body, and you have your breath. And as soon as your breath is coordinated with your movements, here you go. You will be there. Believe me. If you haven't tried it yet, maybe it's also another good thing to try. The good book which I would recommend to read about this special state is book Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It's, as you can read at the top of the slide, New York Times bestseller, but I can vouch for it. It's not just a paid title. It is actually a good one. Eckhart, of course, is not really, I hope he will not be offended, but he's not a Dalai Lama, right? But it actually quite simple, understandable, and very applicable to everyday life, to normal people who are not considering to go to the monastery or something like that. He talks about this moment, power of now, this state of present, this state of flow, which we experience in freediving. And I want to read a couple of quotes referring to what I said before and linking two parts of presentation. When we said that we live our lives in a life full of anxiety, depression, tension, anticipation, not knowing what to do with ourselves. And all this all these thoughts, they are byproducts of time. Time which is created again by our mind, past and future. All negativity is caused by time and denial of the present. Unease, anxiety, tension, stress, worry are caused by too much future and not enough presence. Guilt, regret, resentment, grievances, sadness, bitterness are caused by too much past and not enough presence. So what is my point here? When you are exercising presence, you are relieving yourself from anxiety and worries. And the trick is that the mind, which causes us to experience these unpleasant sensations, is not really a bicep, right? It's not something we can try. As a matter of fact, even scientists still didn't come to conclusion where the mind is located. It's not like if you open human's brain, there will be no part responsible for mind. You don't know where it is. So it's quite hard to navigate and to understand how to control your own mind. But from experience and statistically speaking, from let's say, seeing other people trying freediving and collecting feedbacks of those who already tried, we can know that through the body, which is our getaway into the now, into the presence, through the breathing and breath hold, that's how we can get there, and that's how we can switch it on. We don't know where it is. All we're worried about that it's not working. Leave me alone, please. Just keep our mind aside somewhere. Yeah, so why freediving? Why not that triathlon or endurance swim or everything else? Because in freediving, you kind of don't need to kill yourself over 42 kilometers to experience that. You don't need to become a swimmer to be able to cover 5-10 kilometers. You just need to hold your breath for 1 minute. Maybe with the time you will expand your focus to 2 minutes, and maybe you will even try to dive deep. And as long as your dive continues, you will stay in this present moment and your mind will be silent, and it will give you this peaceful moments in your daily life to recharge, restore your power, and to feel the essence of life again. On this romantic note, I wanna finish my presentation. I think I rest my case. I really didn't have more to say about freediving. I think it's the most brilliant sport. I think it's a sport of the future because we don't need to run fast. We have cars. We don't need to jump high. We don't need to hopefully shoot, right? But we do need sanity. We do need exercise, relaxation, and we need to be taught how to relax. Since the day one we're born, we usually taught how to tense and how to do things, but we never taught how to not to do things. And this is really a skill we don't know. Freediving will teach you this. And I hope this is a good incentive to try. Thank you very much for coming today. If you have questions, we still have 5 spare minutes, and I would be glad to take them and answer. Yes, please. So the limit in freediving, so there are a few limits in freediving. If we're talking about the mental limit, for example, or getting into dangerous zone, right, where you experience acute hypoxic state, the nature itself kind of took care of it, because before getting an acute hypoxic state, your body will give you a warning sign of urge to breathe. And together with urge to breathe, the reaction, physiological reaction in your body happens where the stress hormones of cortisol and like other stuff, I don't want to go into much details about it, are being released. So you will feel, oh, something is not right. You will feel worried. And that's when you know, okay, I'm not pushing myself because I'm doing free diving. That's not the way to do free diving. So I'm going to end up my breath hold. And on the terms, like speaking about deep dives, because I sometimes get that question like about deep dives, yeah, how do I know when to turn and come back? You will not be diving one way, saying, well, you know what, there is the bottom, let's see how far you can get and if you can make it back. No, that's not a nowadays freediving method. You'll be sat, let's say, 2 meters in the beginning, somewhere where you can surely easily dive. And once you come back, you would say, you know, I feel confident maybe trying a meter more. And then your instructor will help you and advise you how to go to that 1 meter more. And it's you who are in control where to go. At some point, of course, we're all different, and some people start to daredevil, but the good instructor is the one who can notice it and coach a person through the experience, saying, you know what, like, let's get you confident in this one and this dive, and then take you further. So at this point, freediving is quite advanced, and teaching methods are in place to avoid pushing limits without intention to do so. Is it okay? Yeah, all right. Anyone? Yeah. So let me show it with a video, demonstrate it. Can you see it all right, or is it too dark? Question. So the question is how do I know when to turn? Because it's obvious that I'm not wearing any mask or anything on my face. Let me find something which is... Can you see this all right? Yeah? So if you can notice a little teeny tiny thing here, like a white spot. No? Not really? Can you? So that is a carabiner, which has a metal cord leash attached to my hand. And it stops me at the end of the line. Let's try to find the end of the line. Be free falling, free falling, free falling. Wait, here. See this bowl? So as soon as I reach the bottom, so first of all, if I wish, it's not mandatory, but I could set an alarm. So knowing that the end of the line is 102 meters, I would have an alarm about 100 and get mentally ready to collect my focus back and prepare for coming up. But if I would not set alarm, or if I would feel very nice because of narcosis, experiencing alternate state of mind, it will stop me and I will turn and come up. And all this is practiced in the training. So it's not like one day I come and you know what, like I'm gonna dive 100. No, I did do these dives many, many times. So even being narked, I'm still in control. It's just such a skill that you don't really need to actively think about it. So the question is, like, if there are any marks, or how do I know how deep I am, right? So this is one of the things about this now moment, about being present. Knowing where you are keeps you attached to the time, right? So you're kind of always waiting. And there is a joke, forgive me if it's a little bit inappropriate, what says that the length of a minute depends on which side of a toilet door you are. So as long as you're waiting for something, it's going to take like eternity. So the best way to perform freediving is just to relax and not wait and enjoy the moment. And that's how you stay present. That's how your focus stays within you. So ultimately, I don't really need to monitor where I am. I can have that alarm just to prepare for the turn if necessary, or I can have the line to fall next to it. Of course, with the practice, you kind of already start to recognize sensations in your body, because at different depth, different pressure, different adjustments happen. And you kind of start to understand where you are. But there is a story, one time the alarm didn't work, the alarm which I had in the beginning of a dive. So sometimes where I need to start to free fall and stop kicking, I would have an alarm around 30 meters depth. But at the moment when I started my dive, the battery of my computer went off. So I didn't have that alarm. And you know what? I made a perfect dive without any understanding where am I. I was just staying in the moment, and that was completely fine. The line finished, I came back to the surface, nice walk. When I teach my students, I teach them to perceive their dives as a sunset beach walk, just enjoying the process. That's it. Okay. Okay, we must finish. The time is over. I would love to continue talking. If you feel like it and you want to approach me, feel free. I'm going to be around for the next couple of hours. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you around. Enjoy the show.